In my many years of playing then ultimately covering games, I have borne witness to many cardboardian fads, from the deluge of deck builders following Dominion to everybody and their brother's mother bringing us their own personal roll-and-write game. And now, with the Crew and Sail, and perhaps the unimaginatively named The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, we might just be on the precipice of the golden age of cooperative trick-takers. And I'm kind of here for it. For those who don't know, trick-taking games are generally card games where the lead player plays a card setting the lead suit, and all other players must play a card of that suit if possible, with the highest on-suit card winning the trick and scoring the cards. There are a bazillion variations on this, often involving trump suits or twists that incentivize inventive card play, but the core concept is pretty consistent. What Fellowship brings to the table is that using the structure of an increasingly more complex series of mandatory or optional characters and additive rules over 24 sequential chapters, following the titular title, not the entirety of the Lord of the Rings, but up through Fellowship, beckoning the question, will there be more on the horizon? Each player must fulfill their character's obligation for the group to win, creating a fascinating communal effort to exploit and subvert the operations in what's otherwise a pretty standard trick-taking system. Now, take Chapter 1, A Long-Expected Party. The mandatory characters in it are Frodo and his beloved Uncle Bilbo Baggins. And rounding out the crew that players can be are Gandalf the Wandering Wizard and good old Pip. And each of them have their own interests at play that you have to succeed for the whole party to win. Now, Frodo, he doesn't actually care about the tricks that he wins. He solely cares about winning at least 4 of the 5 ring cards that are in the deck for him to fulfill his condition. Which is tricky, pun very much intended, because one of the only unconventional rules of the core system in this game is that rings, which are numbered only 1 through 5 compared to 1 through 8 for all of the other suits, can only lead tricks once someone has revealed a ring as part of following a lead card. And because you must follow the lead card by playing on suit if possible, that means that players are going to have to scheme and connive so that someone can drain their hand and eventually pitch a ring into the fire so the ring token can flip over, allowing players to play rings as lead cards so that Frodo can find ways of accumulating them. Fortunately, Frodo, who is mandatorily assigned to the player with the 1 ring, can use the 1 ring card to optionally win any trick it's played into. A fun bit of thematic tomfoolery with increasingly important strategic implications as you go. Anyway, so Frodo needs to win 4 rings, regardless of how many tricks Frodo actually wins, but Bilbo needs to win 3 or more tricks, which isn't so bad. You're like, psh, I got this, no problem. Except for Gandalf also needs to win at least 1 trick, and ultimately Pippin needs to win the fewest or tied for fewest tricks possible, and that's just Chapter 1 of this game that adds more and more characters with increasingly complex rules and additional sub-rule systems like threat cards with Nazgul that get added in and throw more unpredictable twists into the beginning of each game. So as you can see, the game escalates and complicates with all these logistics that are piled on and on to the fundamental trick-taking system. And if your brain works in a specific way that you like analyzing and working around constraints collaboratively, then it is really quite lovely. The structure of the game invites multiple plays in a session, not only because of the sequential scenarios forming a campaign, but because each scenario takes only 10 to 20 minutes, which I like the forward propulsion and the novelty of a campaign trick-taking game, but I'm not gonna lie, there's a version of this game that I wish was just shuffle up some characters and play straight out of the box without the baggage of worrying about scenarios. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have persistent elements that carry over from game to game, it's just a a story-based scenario that introduces concepts that grow from the beginning. So in theory, once you go through it, you could just choose to play whatever scenario you want, and there is an ongoing post-campaign mode, but there are 24 layers to the onion to get there, and clearly that's not the intended way to play the game. Though judging it on its own merits, the scenarios are charming. Each comes equipped with a story beat and surprising deep cuts on characters and challenges. As a nerdy-ass nerd, I was genuinely overjoyed when Glorfindel popped up as a playable character in this cute little trick-taking game in only Scenario 3, so I knew what to expect as far as what sorts of things they might be pulling in down the road. And speaking of cute, the stained glass motif goes a long way in presenting Middle-earth in a fresh way, a way where my man Frodo has cheekbones for days. Something that deserves a mention are the accommodations for solo and two-player, the latter of which takes a page out of Seven Wonders Duels' book, creating a drafting pyramid that players can play from as a substitute third player assigned one of the player roles at the beginning of the game, a surprisingly fluid, if unexpected and unconventional, approach to filling out a table count. Solo is less good, but maybe for a trick-taking game that's to be expected, but it's cute that they tried. Deal 4 hands of 4 face-up cards and assign each a character and just logic out the tricks, drawing new cards to replace those played until you run out from the deck. It functions better than I'd have expected, but you trade the suspense, dynamism, and snappy nature of the genre for cold, calculating logistics. It's fine, and it feels kinda like playing solitaire with your Middle-earth cards, setting the parameters for which you can assign certain cards here or there, but it's not the lens through which I want to play a trick-taking game. How Office Dog felt like they needed to include a solo mode in this game and left the solo mode for River of Gold on the table is beyond me, but hooray for options. It's just a tidy delight that's honestly better than I expected it to be. Now, it's not as grueling as The Crew, or certainly the latter scenarios in Sail, and I don't think it's going to win over anyone who just outright doesn't like trick-taking games. But for fans of co-ops, Middle-earth, or just clever card games, I think it's going to land just right. And that's our review, but let me know, what is your favorite cooperative trick taker and your favorite game set in Middle-earth? There's lots to cover there. So for people who might just be coming to the world of board games because of a love of Middle-earth with this, let them know what are the best games to turn to next. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, and thanks for being such an awesome community. You know that I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.